Conversations from the Cave is a raw self-help podcast dedicated to discussing men's issues. From pornography to parenting, from religion to real life, from learning to loving. We discuss the real issues that affect real men every day. Join us each week for powerful, revealing Conversations from the Cave. Now your host, Kurt Kennedy.
Welcome to Conversations from the Cave. I am Kurt Kennedy, your host. We're joined in studio by three really great guys. We've got Mustang. And Mustang, why don't you give a shout out and check in with us, please?
Hey guys, this is CJ Mustang McCann, just giving you a buzz. VO guy here from Birmingham, Alabama. Thanks for joining us.
We're also joined in studio by BA. BA, can you give us a shout out, sir?
Yes, this is BA sitting here from Huntsville, just ready to talk and enjoy.
And we also have one other gentleman. Nola, can you give us a shout out, sir?
This is Nola73. Meet you where you at. Happy holidays.
Tonight's topic, gentlemen, is the topic of forgiveness. We've been discussing over the past several weeks the challenge of dealing with pornography. And one of the first areas that becomes most difficult for most men to do is to find forgiveness of yourself. Oftentimes there is a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of difficulty that's associated with just any kind of challenge that men face. And a lot of times we have to carry those burdens and challenges all on our own. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about self-forgiveness and what that means and how to do it. We're going to also talk about how to confront and forgive those who have done us wrong. So tonight I'm going to open it up and make a confession that for me, probably one of the biggest challenges that I have on a day-to-day basis is working through forgiveness. In particular, I have a great deal of difficulty when I don't reach my expectations for myself. And I know that a lot of guys are driven. I know I'm not alone. I'm a bit of a workaholic, not proud to say that. But I think there are a lot of guys who push. And when you don't see the type of return immediately, it's often quite easy to get down on yourself and be filled with guilt, be filled with anxiety, and not really be very productive once you get off of the job. Or sometimes we carry our jobs to our homes. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. How do you guys compartmentalize your lives enough to where you're able to switch focus, forgive yourself, take your day, switch gears, and begin to love on people? Mustang, let's open up with you, sir.
Oh, that's a rough one there. I have difficulty in that myself. But before I worked from home, it's easy to kind of throw off the blame, You've got somebody to answer to. They're giving you this. They're giving you that. Well, why aren't things this way? Why aren't things this way? Or, I'm not getting enough money because I'm not getting recognized for my hard work. I'm not getting this. But when you're at home and you're working for yourself, like, I'm it. Like, if I'm not making enough money, if we're not making enough money, bringing enough in, it's me. If I'm not getting the clients I want or the type of clients I want, it's me. Like, everything's on me. So I've experienced a level of, I'm not going to say depression. It hasn't been to the form of depression, but maybe anxiety is a good word, but, difficulty forgiving myself, for just like, man, like I haven't put the time and effort in. I haven't put this in, or I haven't put that in, or I have. And like you said, I haven't seen the return. So even this one, I'm looking at some of the other guys. Maybe they've had easier times, forgiving themselves.
One of those topics where I think it touches every man. What are your thoughts on managing work, home life, forgiving yourself, balancing that? Dealing with financial issues, that kind of thing. Chime in for us.
Well, first of all, I want to make the statement that in forgiveness, it's very hard to understand it unless you're a believer. Because you just look in Scripture, in the Bible, and sorry that this is where I jump on forgiveness is, but I've been just racking my brain since we started this and trying to see forgiveness from a worldly perspective. Yes, it's available, but there's no fulfillment. But I know we'll get into that a little bit later, I'm sure. But self-forgiveness is very difficult if you don't have an understanding of love and what, Jesus, for those of you that don't know who he is a guy in the Bible that's done more than enough for each and every one of our lives. And his story you should read. And his story is about forgiveness because this world was broken and in sin, and over, just we couldn't grasp any idea of knowing how to be forgiven. And then Jesus came into this world to be the ultimate sacrifice, ultimate forgiveness of all those sins for our lives. So, as you're asking me about, forgiving yourself, for me, the easy part has just been, well, hold on. I didn't mean to say easy. I meant to say daily refreshing or a continual knowing is to have Jesus Christ in my life, and that, the forgiveness of self is on him. Not because of anything I've done or deserved, but through his grace and mercy, I can understand that forgiveness of forgiving myself and not lead down the other roads of depression, of addictions, of stuff like that, because daily I must have my relationship with him. And that helps me get through forgiving myself, because, we all have failures. We all have problems and issues. And to me, and I use this phrase, is when you fail forwards or fall forwards so you can live on. And just final thought here is I've got a friend, and I've been trying to get him to forgive himself of the issue of the past, but he can't. And in my mind, that right there, unless he forgives himself of that issue, it's going to be really tough for him to move on in his future in every area. And thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, I think a couple of points that you brought out that I'd like to touch on. The first is that being a person who is forgiving is, when it starts with yourself, one of the things that it does is it may, in fact, help you deal with the potential for falling victim to addictions. So if you aren't dealing with excessive guilt, you don't have to use coping mechanisms in order to deal with that guilt in ways that may not be constructive. When you have a higher power, in this case we discussed Jesus, BA is a Christian, with Jesus in the picture, or for those of you who don't believe in God, having some sort of higher power, being able to believe that higher power, in our belief would be Jesus, can carry those burdens for you. That allows us to sort of change our perspective and recognize that there is something else beyond just our own shoulders to carry the weight of our burdens on. I think that's a great point, that getting rid of unforgiveness in yourself can remove guilt, which allows you to be able to more productively avoid things like addictions. Nola, when we talk about the challenge of balancing work and home life, you have sons and you have responsibilities. How do you deal with the guilt of not necessarily being able to be there for everything? How do you cope with it? How do you resolve it? How do you work through it? How do you deal with those things? And what do you tell yourself when you're going through those things?
Well, you can never get to a point to where you're going to always be comfortable and making comments to make oneself feel good. You have to be able to talk it over with your spouse and get her perception, and that in its time will help you to feel better. Because if you do it by yourself, you would never get the answer. You would always say, well, I'm working hard, I'm bringing in money, the wife happy. Yes, I am not there, but the money is the compensation for. And what happens is you continue to put an idol in front of your guilt, and you would never get resolution. But when you talk to your significant other, she in return can say, this is what I feel like. Yes, looking over the finances. We don't need this extra money. We would actually rather you be here. We do need the extra money, but we would rather you here over the money. We can work things out together. And when you know you have a partner that's willing to work with you toward common goals that y'all set forth, sometimes your guilt isn't as strong as you thought it was, or as strong as you would like it to not have been, because you can have it reduced based upon just conversating. And the mere fact that most of us tend to have a greater guilt on ourselves is because, again, it's us bringing it on ourselves. The Bible says that God would not put more on you than you can bear. The other stuff comes from us saying, I can do this, I can make this happen. And then we become burdened with the sins and the cares of this world. And then the guilt starts to set in, and then that brings on other health issues. And the whole thing about guilt is that we want to shake it off. We need to shake it off. And it goes back to what we talked about in the previous things when we was talking about pornography, is having someone that you can be accounted for, accountable to. And those brothers can be that, that encouragement that say, you know what, man, you don't have to worry about that. You know what? I have a few extra dollars, or I have a little hand where I can help you cut grass, or be able to come over and help you do this. And you'll be surprised of how guilt falls off. And you don't have to worry about the consequences of like the burdens that you done brought on yourself, because the real reason is we have not because we ask not. And it's just that simple. As hard as we may think it really is a simple solution. And we just have to get to the point to where we can just start asking questions. It ain't no different than what we're doing right now as a group of men just coming together. You're posing questions to us and we're getting ideas. We're just throwing ideas around. And I'm taking BAs, I'm taking Mustangs, and we just, using everybody's ideas. I can strengthen my marriage, or I can help my marriage where it's weak or where I feel like it's lacking based upon the knowledge that we're throwing together. And this is what this whole meeting and movement that we're trying to do, Conversation from the K, is to help men drop that guilt. Don't worry about your consequences, because they're going to always be consequences. The hardest decisions in life is decisions that we never make. And those are the ones that we just choose to keep our mouth closed with.
Those are great points. I wanted to sort of elucidate a couple of things. The first is that it's really interesting how, even though we were talking about forgiveness as the topic, the coping, the thing that we need to forgive a lot of times is ourselves, and that is because of heavy laden with guilt. One of the things that I wanted to switch gears is I wanted to talk about what happens when you got your ace, or you got your confidant, your wife, your significant other, and you get into an area of conflict, and you need to find a way to forgive someone else. Let's talk about practical ways to work through the forgiveness process and to be effective in forgiving other people. So I'm going to throw that out to you, Mustang. I'm going to let you chime in on that one and give me a little feedback.
So you're just saying with this practical ways to be forgiving to not myself, but to others?
Yeah. When you get into a conflict, how do you deal with it? How do you find ways as men? Because a lot of times it's easier to just isolate, just to say, you know what, psh, and then blow off, whomever or whatever. But it doesn't work so well when you have a spouse, or it doesn't work so well when you got kids, depending on you. It doesn't work so well when you got staff, depending on you. But through this life, we're going to have conflict, and in this life, we're going to have to learn how to forgive. So when you come across conflict, when and if it does come, how do you deal with it, and what are your steps to address it?
For me, it used to always be pretty cut and dry. It was very, if the person, they did me wrong, I'm upset and I'll be angry about it, but if they ask for forgiveness, and I'll forgive them, but
what if they don't?
Well, if they don't ask for forgiveness, and I probably won't, or I will, I might in my heart, maybe somehow. But that was before, and this is a past, like I said, about 8 months to a year. Our whole family's been going through a transformation, and one of the most amazing things, about this transformation that we've been going through, is the forgiveness has been one of the most gigantic parts of our life. It has been absolutely just out of this world. Literally, I'm able to see people when I go to, if I go to a restaurant, if I'm in a fancy restaurant or a fast food restaurant, it doesn't matter. You begin to understand that when these people are anybody, and this is for all the guys out there that are listening, anybody that is upset with you. They're upset. Oh my God, you're like, man, can I have some extra sauce? That's all you ask.